It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours. You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Here is the weird question of the day, and it kind of relates to what I saw last night at the Fieldhouse. Okay? We saw, obviously, and I know we've talked about this 1,000 times, the shock still of the Tyrese Halliburton injury. Last night, I went to the Pacer game. And literally the conversation came up about the Halliburton injury, and you just keep going back to it, especially after they went in and won in Oklahoma City of, the what could have been. And I know it's unhealthy to obsess over that, and that's not my intention. But when you're thinking about that, and it's very easy to get caught up in the just what ifs. And as I park the car and I'm walking into the field house, and I realize my phone tells me that it's 4 degrees out with a wind chill of -2, and I hate it. I hate cold weather.
You know what doesn't make sense? Is when I left the house, by the way, I'm Eddie Garrison. Hello, nice to meet you all. I got in my car. It said it was 11 degrees, but when I checked my phone as I was leaving my house, it said it was 6, but felt like 11. How in the world can it be 6 degrees but feel like 11?
Here's what I don't understand.
I understand 6 feeling like 0 or 1 or 2, but how the heck do you go positive?
You know my whole thing on this, Eddie. I mean, I get what you're saying, right? But at the same time, I've also never understood the feels like, because if the temperature is actually a number to tell you what the air feels like, then there's no feels like about it. If it's 10 degrees but feels like -8, guess what? It's -8, right? I don't know how it would go up. That's a good question for a meteorologist.
Like I just checked my phone, it says your location. It is 14 degrees, but it feels like 26.
Okay. We need to get Sean Ash on the line.
Yeah.
Have him explain it. I'll work on that. In that regard of what you're talking about, the actuality and what it feels like. Okay? As I was leaving the house, I know that it's bitter cold out, and I hate it. Trust me, I hate it. I'm not here in any way, shape, or form to undermine or minimize the suck level of outside, but you do kind of get used to it. The shock of the -5 when you walk out right now is you're kind of like, yeah, okay. I mean, I know it's going to be cold. And you just psychologically prep for it, and it's not that bad. It's bad, but you get what I'm saying. And that kind of is like the Pacers. You knew once you got over the shock of the Tyrese Halliburton injury. You kept preparing yourself mentally. And I said at the beginning of the year, push all in on the over. The over-under for them was like 36 or something at the beginning of the year. And I'm like, they're going to win 40 games. Well, that was before we knew that Neesmith was going to miss a ton of time, and Nembhard was going to miss a ton of time, and Toppin was going to be out for the majority of the season, and, et cetera, right? But I think what you saw last night was the fact that everyone knows this is a team that has won 11 games going into it. Everyone knows this is a team that is in the bottom 4 of the Eastern Conference in wins. Yet, you've kind of gotten used to that aspect of it now, and the rest of it last night felt like a typical Pacer game. I was stunned in a pleasant way, but I was stunned, number one, considering the road conditions, the weather, the snowbanks, all of it, at the crowd. I mean, it was a packed house.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, I'm watching it, and it comes down to, the way, and that's what's been so great about this Pacers unit. And I'm not here trying to carry their water, but, I mean, I'm a Pacer fan, yes. But at the end of the game, it felt like so many games and moments of a year ago when that group was all gelled and together and all healthy, where they're down and then all of a sudden they get a big shot and they get a stop and everybody's standing up chanting defense and they get a big score. All of it is great. It also, I think, illuminated to me, and it would be irresponsible of me to sit here and say definitively, look, the Pacers are tanking. But if you look at, I do think that, I don't think that the Pacers are going out saying, gosh darn it, guys, we're supposed to lose. That's not what I'm saying. But are there times where they experiment with lineups or try different things to do different looks without victory being the primary goal? Perhaps. I know that sounds crazy. But I also think when you look at what happened in Oklahoma City, that was a game where they said, we're pushing all in. And we're going to do so to show our players, our franchise, and to send the subtle message to the rest of the league. We're still here. We're not healthy. We don't have our quarterback. And we haven't had our best linebacker, one of our more dynamic deep ball wide receivers, and one of our running backs for the majority of the year. But we're still here. Don't kid yourself. And so I just last night, two things last night that encouraged me and that I was pleased with. One was that, just all of that. The other was, I went to the game last night with, Eddie, you enjoy yourself a cold Surfside from time to time, right?
I do indeed.
New flavors coming out, by the way, coming out soon, and a couple of different things they have. But Ryan, who is the rep for Indiana for Surfside.
Was he your +1 last night?
Yes, we have obviously professionally known one another, but never like on a personal level hung out. So he went to the game with me last night, and I'm being serious when I say this, okay? This is not – when you represent a brand or you are partnered with a brand, no matter what line of work you're in, if you are an architect and you are meeting with a building developer, if you are an insurance agent and you are dealing with the insurance agent on the other side, if you're a real estate agent and you're dealing with, somebody that comes in to whatever it might be, to recarpet a house before you sell it, whatever. You always want to make sure that you're dealing with good people.
The appraiser?
First and foremost. The appraiser, thank you. You want to make sure that you're dealing with people that you think to yourself, I've always said, two kinds of people in the world, those with the program and those that aren't.
Appraiser isn't the exact title that you were describing there, but yeah, somebody who deals with it, yeah.
Appraiser also good.
Yeah.
So going out yesterday and going to the game with Brian and hearing more of the story of Surfside and how it came to be, and I've known that anyway because I do the research before, talking about brands on the air or whatever. But, man, it was just awesome to know. You know what? That company's just good people. Just good people. And so I was pleased with that. Yes, Eddie, we have breaking news.
Yes, Jake Curry does research.
I do. When it comes to making sure, listen, I want people to know when they listen to this radio show, when I'm talking about a product, I want them to know that I'm not just doing it because it's like, hey, you know what? That's what we do. No, I want them to know that I believe in, like the product, whatever else. So hopefully folks realize as they're enjoying a Surfside, they're saying to themselves, this is a cool company. This is a cool company that kind of started out with just some guys with an idea and has grown now and is here in Indianapolis. And, Ryan's a guy that his dad's an educator. His parents have been working in schools. He's a guy that's got a couple of kids in college now. Just a good old Indiana guy. So that was cool. And it was fun last night to go to the game. But there's a lot to discuss today. My name is Jake Query. You just heard the voice of Eddie Garrison. How are you? It is Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. One of the storylines, aside from, and we'll get more into the Pacers and even the situation with Tyrese Halliburton, who's starting to ramp up a little bit, kind of in the next stage of that recovery. But I got home last night and was sitting around, and I think I put the audio out yesterday from chat because, Eddie, it was one of those things that I didn't really, at the time, I did, but when Chap was talking about it, I don't know that I thought to myself, okay, this is a story that's going to continue to go. And yes, it is a national story, and there's nothing sometimes more tiresome than when you turn on your local radio show and it's just national conversation. People can get that anywhere. I get that, right? You can get that anywhere. But localize the story, right? This story does feel local. And I'm talking about the story. I don't mean to oversell the story. But the story between Bill Belichick and the Hall of Fame and the potential of the involvement of Bill Polian. And the reason I bring it up is because when we had Chap on yesterday, he talked about, here's Mike Chappell yesterday when discussing, and we were discussing the storyline. Mike, for those that are not familiar, let me lay the groundwork here. Mike Chappell is a Hall of Fame voter. A lot of people saw that Bill Belichick it was declared that Belichick would not be inducted in his first year of balloting. And people were like, how could that be based on his resume? And then there were a lot of people that thought, okay, so if he's not getting in, that's good news for Reggie Wayne or Adam Vinatieri. And Chap explained the fact that there are two different categories. Reggie Wayne is part of a group of former players, of which 5 will get in. Bill Belichick is a group of former dignitaries that include 3 senior players, of which 3 will get in. And those 5 are L.C. Greenwood, Ken Anderson, and Roger Craig. I believe those are the 3 former players. And then Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. No more than 3 of that group of 5 will get into the Hall of Fame. So the list of Group B does not impact the list from Group A. So that was the first thing I wanted to clear up. But then with this discussion that Bill Polian may have been the one to step forward and basically encourage other voters to penalize Bill Belichick for Spygate and Deflategate and hold him out in year number 1 of his eligibility. And Chap came on yesterday, and those things were discussed. Here it was.
There were pluses, minuses, many more pluses than minuses. But no one ever said, hey, man, don't vote for this jack off. No, none of that. It was just you debate. There's good debate. There's bad debate. There's emotions. But there were never any instructions by anybody among the other selectors.
So to your knowledge, there was never any sort of a campaign to keep him out, to penalize him?
No. And anyone that says that, I was in the room. Yes, Spygate came up because he cheated. I mean, we can candy coat all you want. He was disciplined by the league, $500,000, and they were docked a first-round draft pick. So that's on his bio. So certainly it was discussed. Now, it just depends on how much you want to weigh that into keeping him out or making him wait a year. It's no different than we've had players who have been suspended for games for steroids, PEDs, whatever. And that could impact their nomination, their candidacy, because it's part of. There's no morality clause. The Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame, it's all based on the field, and I would argue that Spygate impacts on the field. I would argue that a 4-game suspensions for PEDs or whatever, it's on field related. So, but if there's an off the field thing, whatever, that's not to be. Or one thing, and please, people who say that Bill Belichick was kept out because he was a bad guy to deal with in the media. That's so much BS. It really is. I voted for people that I didn't care for. I voted for people that threw me off on interviews. That's got nothing to do with it. And if it does, yes, you should no longer be a selector.
Did you vote for Belichick?
I can't. I'm not going to tell you. I know you got to ask. I'm not going to say. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to keep it quiet.
Okay. So right there, that was yesterday. I really thought in the moment, like, okay, cool. It kind of end of discussion. And then last night, this is the only part to me that was peculiar. Last night, Mike Chappell posted to social media a news release from the Hall of Fame. And in no way, shape, or form am I saying that all of a sudden bells went off like that Mike Chappell was guilty. Understand what I'm about to say here. So he posts with no comment, just simply posts a news release from the Pro Football Hall of Fame that says, statement on media reports related to Hall of Fame's class of 2026. The Pro Football Hall of Fame understands and respects the passionate reaction of many fans, media members, and enshrinees of the Hall itself in the light of published reports regarding the voting results for the class of 2026. It's that very passion that propels the game. The Hall also respects the members of the selection committee when they follow the election process bylaws. It's an honor to serve as a selector. Okay? So I'm thinking, okay, so far, great. Each year, the Hall reviews the selection process and the composition of the 50-person selection committee. If it is determined that any member or members violated the selection process bylaws, they understand action will be taken. That could include the possibility that such selector or selectors would not remain a member of that committee moving forward. The selection of a new class is the most important duty the Hall of Fame oversees each year, and the integrity of that process cannot be in question, end quote. Now, what is the purpose? I'm not trying to be tinfoil hat guy here, okay? But what is the purpose of that statement unless it is to be cart before the horse of the Hall of Fame seeing that there might be fire to the smoke of some sort of a discussion or preemptive bias that was placed about a potential inductee above and beyond what it normally would be. And if that's the case, then you saw other people that started saying that Bill Polian would be the one that is the guilty party here in terms of trying to influence the way people vote. I have no idea if that is emphatically correct. And Bill Polian, through Matt Verderam, has said categorically untrue that that any of that took place. And Bill Polian deserves, as a Hall of Fame member himself, the benefit of the doubt. He has earned the benefit of the doubt of saying, okay, I mean, you had a long career as an NFL executive and one of the most respected, obviously, in the history of the game. Understood. And also was a member of different committees and whatever else. But that statement to me, though, was peculiar because why would you send that out unless you had reason to believe that there might have been something nefarious? Now, Eddie, you tell me, am I wearing a tinfoil hat with that, or am I correct in raising my eyebrow?
I think you're correct in raising your eyebrow because didn't Chap say that you're not supposed to technically share who you voted for?
Yes. Well, that was the other thing. As I mentioned yesterday, David Baker is the name of the guy who is the former director or head president. I don't know the exact title, but he is the Hall of Fame guy that would go and knock on people's doors and, welcome them to the Hall of Fame. And obviously that happens before you see it on television because they have to go out and film it. I get all that. With that said, clearly the players know before the announcements are made as to who is in. Clearly the players know, or else they wouldn't be getting, they get the knock on the door, they film it, you see the reaction, and then 3 days later you see it on the NFL awards show or whatever. So the players have 3 days, a week, whatever it might be. And as I understand it, already those that got in know and those that didn't know. And apparently it's just a handshake.
That is what Chap told us yesterday. He said that Reggie Wayne knows if he's in or not.
Correct.
Already. But we won't know until next week, right?
And I don't know that the voters know. So in other words, again, not to make this all about me, although I have a strength of doing that, but just based on giving precedent of my own understanding of things as an example.
It's the thing you love the most, right?
I love me some me. There is there's only one Hall of Fame that I can speak to, from personal experience, the voting process. And that is that, and it's a privilege and an honor, but I'm a voter for the Motorsports Hall of Fame that's at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And when I make my votes, I get a thing. I get the ballot. It tells me the maximum number that I am to vote for. I get a bio of each potential inductee. And I really take it seriously. And I think most people, I would assume most of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they do the same. I mean, you take it very seriously. And so I look over it and I make my selection. I make notation of it because, as I have said before, if I vote for Eddie Garrison in 2024, then I have to vote for Eddie Garrison in 2025. Because if I deem him worthy of being in the Hall of Fame in 2024, he has done nothing. His numbers and his statistics have not changed from 2024 to 2025. That is my belief of the way that at least I do it. But what I know is this. When I make my votes and I seal it and I hit send, I do not know what anyone else voted. I don't even know who the other voters are. And I also do not know what the results are until I get the email inviting me to the induction dinner. And then I look and I go, okay, so which ones that I voted for got in? Okay, cool. Or who got in that I didn't vote for? Maybe I erred there, whatever. But I don't know. So I think Chap is saying that. The other voters know who they voted for, and the potential inductees know the results, but they do not see the results ahead of time. So Chap will find out. I would imagine he will know just before we do, but I don't know that he knows right now whether or not, say, a Reggie Wayne or an Adam Vinatieri is in, or a Torrey Holt or whatever it may be. And in the case of Belichick, clearly, once Bill Belichick got word that he was not in, he or someone in his camp leaked that information. But I just found it interesting because I saw yesterday, after we talked to Chap, that's when I saw, we talked to Chap, and then I saw last night that statement, and I saw people saying perhaps Bill Polian would be the one that the Pro Football Hall of Fame is talking about there. That is merely conjecture on my behalf. And I hope that is conjecture that is off base. The game last night was good, though. It was a great finish. The great thing about it was it felt like vintage Pacers. Andrew Nembhard, his ability to dribble the basketball, get into the lane, and then pop back. He has one of the best fallback mid-range jumpers in the NBA. And it's almost unguardable because of his water bug nature of changing spot on floor, getting himself space, and the soft touch that he has for it. And then he obviously can hit. I've always said, Nembhard hits shot clock winding threes as well as anybody on that roster. I mean, Halliburton, it goes without saying. And those things, to me, it really was introduced to me, the nuance and the fine sabermetrics or whatever you want to look at. And I'm not a big believer in a lot of that stuff. But I think I've mentioned before one time I had a conversation with the Pacers executive from yesteryear, and I mentioned Derek McKey and why I like Derek McKey. And they said, thing about Derek McKey is he was like a 41% three-point shooter, but he was a 54% three-point shooter on shots that were inside of 3 seconds on a shot clock possession or a quarter. How in the world do you know that, and who figures all that stuff out? And those, I'm generically throwing out the numbers, but the point being that that's what they were saying. And that feels like that way about Andrew Nembhard. His percentage just goes up when it's like all hell's breaking loose and the alarm clock's about to go off level shots. You had that last night. You had Siakam hit big shots down the stretch. And then you had, as always, Aaron Nesmith making defensive plays or just being Johnny on the spot. And the other encouraging thing is Johnny Furphy hitting, free throws down the stretch and being on the floor in crunch time with the rest of them because of his age and his youth. And they have been a fan of Johnny Furphy. And I think Johnny Furphy, you're starting to see, is a guy that is working his way into rotation And maybe, that also has pushed Jarris Walker a little bit, and Walker continues to at least Walker had a fascinating stat line last night at one point when I looked up, and he had 16 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, and 0 fouls.
That was the stat line. 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting, no rebounds, no assists, no turnovers, no steals, no blocks, no rebounds, no fouls.
That has to be.
That is a Tony Snell stat line almost.
That is that's a Kyle Kuzma level stat line, except for Kuzma had a 0 in the score column as well. But my point being, you can still see that the foundation is there. You can still see that the pieces are there. And I think that they still would like to get, they'd like to get one of those wings that's going to be coming out. You got to be a little careful in that regard. But Tyrese Halliburton, I was watching him last night during the timeouts, watching him move around. There's more action, if you will. There's more movement with him in terms of what we're not seeing in terms of his starting to move, starting to run, starting to play a little bit. Where is he versus where he should be? And what does that mean for Daniel Jones and what we could prognosticate? What does it mean? What does Isaiah Jackson's look like for Tyrese Halliburton? And for you folks listening that are not elite level NBA or NFL athletes, this time of year can present a challenge to the little aches and pains that can become worse. And I'm curious about that, and that's why I called up Ralph Reif and said, Ralph, any chance you can come on the program? And he said, absolutely, and he's going to do it next. That conversation next. Big show lined up. We're going to talk a little Big Ten football. Yes, we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the Milwaukee Bucks, their situation with Giannis, what that means, and we'll get back more into the Pacers chat as well. But Ralph Reif, other side here, Thursday edition, Query and Company on the Fan.
listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It is my obligation every time this song is played, not every time, but every third time. Every third time I reference something from this song. Eddie, do you remember what it is about the memory of Jake Query that pops up every time this song is played?
As it pertains to our house, I do not.
In 1983, at Taylor University basketball camp, which, by the way, is a fantastic, I know now parents get too over-concerned with the basketball camps of, well, I've got to go to 5-star or ABC or any of those big-time basketball camps. But in terms of just having fun and spending a week in a college dorm with your friends at the age of 10 or 11 years old and being away from home for the first time, Taylor basketball camp, which I believe they still do, was just fantastic when I was a kid. I loved it. And the basketball players at Taylor were the camp counselors. And, of course, we thought they were just a step below the, 84 Indiana national semifinal team, or, final Elite Eight team, I should say. And it was great. But they woke us up every morning in the dorms by playing that song, Our House by Madness. And every time I hear it, I can immediately smell the sense of the dormitory knowing I'm getting ready to go down and eat my entire body weight of Cap'n Crunch and play basketball all day. Joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. JavaHouse.com is the website for the Peel and Pour pods, the Colombian coffee, the Liquid Science hydration beverage, also Wrangler energy drink, amongst the others that they have available. Jake25 for 25% off at JavaHouse.com. But Ralph Reef of RalphReef.com, of course, the longtime athletic trainer. And Ralph, I thought to myself, you know what? Football season, at least from the Colts standpoint, is obviously complete, but that's not to say that there aren't still injuries that are out there that we need to discuss. So I wanted to bring you back for a midterm refresher course. Is that fair?
That's very fair, Jake. Good to be with you.
Well, I failed all my midterms, so hopefully I do better this time, okay? Reef Executive Performance Solutions, by the way, for Ralph Reef. Ralph, let's begin with this. The last time that we talked, obviously we were discussing injuries within the NFL, but the Tyrese Halliburton injury is one that we continue to have an eye on. And if you look at the timeline of where he is, we are essentially, I guess you'd say, 7 months removed from that day in Oklahoma City. 31 weeks, Eddie tells me specifically. And there's report that now his range of motion is such that he's starting to play a little bit of light pickup basketball, things like that. Would this put him ahead of, behind of, or right about on the schedule of what you see?
Yeah, this is a very good news that we've been hearing and seeing for those that are able to see him pregame with the Pacers. He's, as Eddie said, 31 weeks, maybe somewhere around 220 days, and he is right on target from all the metrics that we use for within elite athletes and coming off that surgery. So going back on that, as you said, late June, about the third week of June, he had the surgery. Here we are, somewhat similar time frame, 7 months later. He should be doing activity such as been reported, and but with a lot of reporting that we aren't privy to. How does he recover from those situations? Does he recover within an hour? Does he take a good night's sleep to feel like he can do it again tomorrow? That kind of thing that we aren't aware of. But all indications are he's right on target.
When it comes to the injury that he had, an Achilles injury, the recovery time, I know that at the time, Ralph, we had talked about the fact that Tyrese Halliburton's one of the good news was that tear that he suffered was higher up on the Achilles than, say, lower on the Achilles. This obviously is well beyond my intellectual capability, but how much fluctuation is there from one person to the next in terms of diagnosing or assessing timeline of an Achilles versus other injuries? Does it have more fluctuation, less fluctuation than other injuries that you see, if that makes sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, it does. And Achilles tendons, whether the rupture's down near the heel or whether it's up right at the connection to the calf muscle, it's pretty much a cookbook that anybody can pull off the shelf and say, hey, it's 7 months, you should be at this point. And so because blood supply is about the same throughout the entire length of the Achilles tendon from the calf, in that transition from the fleshy calf muscle into the tendinous material. Blood supply there is pretty much similar as it is all through the Achilles structure. So things don't deviate a lot unless there are issues in the person's health otherwise, autoimmune issues, nutrition deficiencies, but none of those are present in this person that we're talking about as far as we know.
One of the things that I saw recently, and I think it was Halliburton might have been the one to say this, but it was thrown out there, that he has, since the injury, that he has added 30 pounds on his frame. Presumably that would be muscle because, especially when he wasn't running, he probably was lifting weights, doing whatever. But either way, let's just say for the sake of argument, that is a normal, healthy 30-pound muscle mass addition to his body. Will that in any way stress the Achilles once it's repaired because it is more weight than any area of his body was used to having prior to injury?
Yes, weight is a factor, no question. And 30 pounds, come on, Jake. I mean, I wonder, that's a lot, right? I wonder if that's just a little bit of street rumor or what all is going on. Obviously, he has not been as physically active as you are when you're a starting player in the NBA. Think about the calories burned and think about the lifestyle, how hard it is to keep calories in the body. We had those issues at the collegiate level with basketball players, male and female, that, your folks who are on the floor for 75% of the game, it's hard to keep body weight on them. So this could be a factor of being less active, but 30 pounds of muscle or non-muscle tissue, it does add stress to the Achilles tendon. No question about it.
Again, Ralph Reif is my guest. Java House, Peel and Pour guest line is where you are hearing his voice. The comparison then, when you look at Halliburton and where he stands, that then opens the door to wondering where Daniel Jones may or may not be at this point in his recovery. Any idea as to when the window might open that Daniel Jones also begins to kind of get some sort of range of motion where he's able to then work out, and how that may line up for the Colts?
Yeah, I think that Daniel Jones, as I think we talked about during the NFL season when that happened, I fully expect him to be an active participant in OTAs in May. I think that, again, if Tyrese Halliburton were transposed into the NFL and we were in the NFL season at 7 months and he's doing jump shooting, doing some maybe lateral movements, all controlled activity, and you transpose that to a person throwing passes, drop back, plant the foot, throw. I would think that at 7 months, Daniel Jones will be very active throwing the football. And so I anticipate seeing a lot of good reports about him. He may be on a pitch count, or a leg step count, but he'll be very involved in May. That's my feeling.
Stress fracture in the fifth metatarsal, whatever it might be. Basically, I think that's the fifth. I'm talking about Obi Toppin's injury here, Ralph. The fifth metatarsal, is that the little piggy that went wee all the way home? Is that which one that is?
That's the one. And
okay.
But the fracture's not up in the toe. It's actually in the long shaft of the bone at the forefoot. So if you reach down to the side of your foot, you'll feel a bump about halfway between your heel and your little toe. That's the head, or that's the largest part of the fifth metatarsal. And so the fracture generally occurs maybe an inch towards the toes from that point. So it's a mid-shaft fracture that usually occurs. That's the fifth metatarsal.
Okay. So Obi Toppin's recovery, it looks as though he is getting close. What sort of, if any, even psychological things does a player or an athlete have to overcome, especially one with the elite level, even above ground athleticism of Obi Toppin?
Yeah, it's Jake. Every setback creates a challenge for the athlete to go back forward. And each person has their own resources to do that. Some have their own grit built in, but there is that moment. I was prior to this call, I was doing some reading on Kevin Durant and his Achilles injury in 2019, and he made a lot of statements about his fear. He actually thought about retiring versus coming back on that Achilles, but his time frame worked out really well for him, and so yeah. Obi's going to have, what's his game, right? His game is he's an elite vertical jumper. And so he's got to get confidence in that foot in random play. And so that's where you can't predict your motions. That means when you're actually playing, defending, moving offensively, where you have to get to the point where your level of mental confidence is such that it's not a thought process any longer. And that's a timeline that no one can predict. So it is a barrier. How tall that barrier is truly an individual journey.
Ralph, this time of year, you see it a lot. And I know this is going to sound really dumb and elementary, but when we get almost a foot of snow, and you see people out there that are shoveling the drive, they're pushing a car out of a snowbank, they're doing whatever they may do. Oftentimes you just do it out of necessity and you don't think about it, but at the same time, you are moving your body in a range of motion or to a physical exertion that perhaps it's not used to. What are the, if any, what are the risks of injury that the average weekend warrior might get in the driveway in the next couple of weeks and maybe should be looking out for that it might be time to get it looked at?
Yeah, Jake, this is, I have friends that work in the various emergency departments around central Indiana, and there's a significant spike in cardiovascular visits, stroke visits or stroke emergencies, and falls. Falls are a big issue in weather like this. And, more of the cardiovascular stuff can be somewhat age-related. I know you've had your own experience with this, and I wouldn't put you anywhere near the my age group. And but one of the first things we always say about when there's snow like this and individuals are contemplating going out, grabbing their shovel and getting after it is try to talk yourself out of that and flag down some young man who's living in the neighborhood or young lady that's throw them some money and have them do it for you. But this is when the hidden issues can certainly come up from a cardiovascular standpoint. But really the biggest issue that will last beyond the snow here a little bit is the freeze, refreeze, and the fear of and the actual falling that occurs. Wrist fractures, elbow fractures, head injuries. That's the real issue. So the old adage of walk like a penguin, just slow down and go from there. It's hard to find a place to walk. This just in this kind of weather. And Butler University's men's cross-country team was on Washington Boulevard the other day at the crown of Washington Boulevard between 49th and 56th because it was dry and there was no ice. I mean, it was like the only place they could find in the Butler-Tarkington area to run a normal stride. Everything else is, it really puts you at risk of falling.
I live on Washington. If they could just slide down that dry road a couple of blocks, I'll be good to go. But all right, so Ralph, last question then would be, if let's say somebody does fall, they get that stinger in the elbow or whatever it may be, they should start getting it looked at if the pain lasts how long. How do you know the difference between, hey, I just bruised it and, whoa, I might have a serious problem here? Or is it that obvious when it happens you've got a serious problem?
Yeah, if things don't calm down within a 12-hour window, and sometimes that you don't last that long. But if things start to present with more swelling, lack of range of motion, or the pain is just at a level of, hey, this should be gone by now, and using intuition, and I know good common sense, we all weren't blessed with the same amount, and but it's mainly a factor of, can I function or not? Does my elbow move the way it should? Can I grip a doorknob with my hand and wrist, or can I tie my shoes? And it's been 2 days now, and I can't tie my shoes because my wrist hurts too much. You need to seek advice for that, because those things can, the swelling might go away, the pain might dissipate, but then you're left with a dysfunctional part of your body that may not be a big issue early on, but it can certainly take its toll long term.
RalphReif.com is the website, REIFF for Reif Executive Performance Solutions. Ralph, always a pleasure. I know you got a busy, packed day today, so squeezing us in, always appreciate it. And if there are some injury report issues of note for the Super Bowl, we may have to bring you back and get the lowdown on what's going on with that. But appreciate it as always.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jake. Thank you very much.
Ralph Reif joining us on the Java House Peel and Port guest line. We come back, I've got a question for Eddie as it relates to the Big Ten and Indiana in college football. We'll do that other side. Tony East going to join us too. Talk Pacers here on The Fan.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Eddie's spinning all the hits today, man. I like it. If it was hot in the first half of the 80s, we've got you covered here on The Fan. Right? Turn up the knob and rip it off. Your hits of the MTV era here on The Fan. Now,
Not
last
quite
night,
the voice that you should have there. It needs to be more of like a raspy, like from all the cigars.
that's right. Yeah, tune it in right now on The Fan.
That's more like
Scott Farrell.
that's more like the
That's Farrell on the bench, right?
the cowboy or whatever he is in The Water Boy that nobody understands.
Nobody understands me either. Last night, listener Matthew sent me a text, and we were talking.
Matthew, formerly of Maine, now of Indianapolis.
No, this is Matthew, formerly of Shelby County, now on the east side of Indianapolis.
Okay.
And he listens to the show. He works nights, so he sleeps during the day and then gets up and he listens a lot of times on replay.
On
podcast form. But he said, he said, sometimes I'll watch you on YouTube, and the only problem is I can't always hear the songs that Eddie's playing. And I said, well, there's like copyright laws there or whatever on the YouTube aspect, so it's got to be separated, but spinning the great hits. All right, here's my question for you, Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
You can ponder this for a while before you give me your answer.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, you'll have 35 minutes to ponder this.
Okay.
Because Tony East is upcoming, correct?
Yeah.
What Indiana just did is undoubtedly remarkable. And it would be redundant and probably an overabundant exercise for me to sit here and talk to everybody in Indianapolis about Indiana, the significance of their turnaround in football. And we just did. We spent an entire year doing exactly that. And then I did an entire show after they won the title of trying to just illustrate to people what all of it meant. And while it is absolutely incredible, and it still is hard to fathom, it still doesn't, like Brian Jacobson said it best, it's surreal, but it's real, right? And it doesn't seem real. With all of that said, there are a lot of things in place that also facilitated for it. Indiana gets all the credit in the world for Scott Dolson seeing Curt Cignetti and saying, I believe in what this guy can do, and I believe that just because he was able to do it at smaller schools doesn't mean he can't do it at Indiana. And Indiana gets credit for also, from the very top, committing to making sure that they are, financially speaking, doing the things and building the blocks that allow for football to do what it did. And it takes more than, you've got to, you can't do it without great players and a great coach. And Indiana checked those boxes. But then it also turned around and got into NIL and transfer portal and everything else. Mm-hmm. So there were external factors that assisted.
Yes.
The question I have for you is this, and you got to think about it, Eddie. You got 35 minutes to think about it before we discuss.
Okay.
You get to pick one team in the Big Ten, and I'll include Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. So we'll include those four, as well as the original Big Ten and then the other additions, Rutgers, Maryland, Penn State, Nebraska. So of the 18 schools I just mentioned, you get to, Eddie Garrison, pick one of them. And for every season that passes that the school you select does not go to the Big Ten championship game in football, you get $1 million.
Can you repeat those schools again?
The entire Big Ten.
Entire Big Ten?
So the entire Big Ten.
$1 million for every year that team does not make the...
What team would give you the most money? There's an answer that is a knee-jerk answer people give. I think that's the wrong answer. But think about it.
Okay.
Think long and hard about it. And then tell me, we'll talk about it after Tony East joins. And Tony joins us next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, so to clarify the question again, basically in its simplest form, what I'm saying is, of all of the Big Ten schools, which one do you think, starting today, it will be the longest drought before they are ever, just starting today, the school that is the least likely to, at any point in the future, make the Big Ten championship game in football? And I think there are a number of factors, because Indiana just took the blueprint on what it takes and ripped it up and threw it out. Because you saw it, there are a number of factors that need to come into play, but if you get them all aligned, things are kind of set up right now for turnarounds within college athletics. Turnaround for the Pacers last night, at least in one game, by winning. Pretty exciting game, because it did not look like they were going to win against Chicago, and then all of a sudden it looked a little bit like turn back the clock night at the Fieldhouse. And Tony East joins us now from, of course, Locked On Pacers Forbes. He's on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. JavaHouse.com is the website. Of course, they also have locations where you can go into Java House, one of them downtown Indy, one in Fishers, one in Broad Ripple. Tony, last night, before we get to the game itself and talking about the roster of the Pacers, agree or disagree? Last night, the crowd and the energy in the building was pretty encouraging, considering the weather, the traffic, etc., and the way the season's gone.
Jake, how many games have you missed this year? This is relevant to your question.
Home games, one or two. I'd have to think. One or two, I think.
So they played Washington that night that, like, nobody could get out of their house. There was very few people at that game. That's pretty much it this season in terms of games that I thought the crowd was, like, small. Like, they've been really good at filling up the arena and being into the games. And that's why, like, last night they were down, like you would, I mean, if you were there, they were down, like, the whole game, right? They were trailing basically from the middle of the first quarter until there were, like, 3 minutes left. And Jay Huff does a reverse dunk in the third quarter, and they're down, like, 8 at the time. And I thought, man, people were really psyched about that. Like, the crowd got into it, and you just kind of felt with the crowd, like, if they could get us run of 7 or 8 points in a row here, like, they could be right back in this game. And sure enough, the guys who all did it last year could do that. In the last, 7 minutes, they were down 14 and then were basically perfect the rest of the way. Their crowd's been, for a team that entered the day with the worst record in the league, I've been impressed all season by how many people are still coming every night.
Do you think that's because people understand there's plausible reason why they're bad?
So I think that's part of it. Like, the sentimental value of last season, even if the team stinks last year, still exists for some people, certainly, right? The support of that group and what they did and what they could have done. And then, yeah, like it's very understandable why they're bad. And, for a team with 12 wins, like the other teams with 12 or fewer wins, the Nets, the Wizards, the Pelicans, Siakam is pretty comfortably the best player on all the crappy teams in the league, right? Like, you're going to see a good player or several good players as Nembhard keeps playing better and things of that nature, right? Like, it's going to be entertaining. They usually, outside of last night, ironically, even though they won, play pretty well for 35 to 40 minutes of the game. Like, you're going to be entertained. You're going to see a good player. There's a lot of sentiment to it. Like, I totally get why people are coming for lots of reasons. And most of the time, they very rarely get, like, just stomped, right? They do lose a lot, obviously, but they've had very few just straight-up stinkers all year. So it's very rarely boring, too. I think that's good.
Okay, couple of players to, I guess, examine from last night. All right, first off, and we talked about this. I talked about this earlier this week, I believe, and you and I might have discussed this a little bit, but are we going to look back, Tony, and say a year or two? I'll put it, here's a better way of asking this question. A year or two from now, when we're watching the Pacers play, the player that we are going to then look at and say, now it all makes sense because that gap year, and I'm going to call this year a gap year, that gap year most benefited this player because he most had to either learn a new role or just be more comfortable in the role he had or diversify his skill set. What player will that be 2 years from now that we will look back on the 2025-2026 season and say he really benefited from that?
Yeah, it's tough to pick one. I want to pick two, but one of the two had a really, really bad start to the season and is now playing awesome, and the other one was hurt and is now playing pretty well. So I'll go with Johnny Furphy first. And last night had, like, a moment-ish for him in that he all season has, with this starting role, been asked to guard really good players quite often, right? Maybe not the best player on the team, but the second best, or at least somebody very talented. He had great reps against Zach LaVine that stick out in my head, for example. But he hasn't had like a very this is the one memorable play that shows his defensive progress or anything like that. And last night they go up one after Aaron Nesmith's reverse layup. They need one stop to win the game. He's guarding Kobe White, the Bulls' maybe most talented scorer, and just a flawless defensive rep. Stays right with him, stays in front of him, stays on his hip the whole way to the rim, makes the shot awkward enough that Nesmith can block it, and the Pacers win the game. That defensive emergence for a player of that size, even if you can't shoot, you have a role on any team if you can defend at that size. And so him doing this for a pretty long stretch now of being a quality defender and really good rebounder, which they can use at any position, I think has been super encouraging for the Pacers that they have something with their second-round pick from last year, and he's been healthy for a long stretch, which hadn't really happened in his career to this point yet. And they've learned that him and Siakam are a front court that actually works, right? They had no idea if Siakam Furphy made any sense before these last couple of weeks. Now they're starting together at the 4-5. So that's obviously one of them, and that pairing could be a thing that when they're hoping to be good again next year, 2 years, whatever, could be a thing. And, of course, it's now good that for the last, almost a month and a half, Jarace Walker has been reliably good. I don't know how you feel about this. Some players have their shooting percentage. It is what it is. But when a guy shoots a three, do I feel like there's a chance it goes in or not? And for Jarace, for a long time this year, when he would shoot, I didn't feel like it was going to go in. And recently, I'm like, okay, now when he misses, I'm surprised, right? He shot that well for the last couple weeks or so, still over 50% for a really long sample. It'll cool off a little, but he's shooting awesome, and he's adding more to it. He had a forceful layup last night where he just cleared his defender out with the shoulder. His defense has made strides basically every night. He just looks way more comfortable and like he understands what's going on, what he can do to help, where his shots are coming from in a way that he looked lost to start the season. He couldn't make anything in the first month. So if there's ever long stretches of sustained really good play for Walker or Furphy in future seasons, or they're playing key roles for the upcoming, the Pacers will hope great teams, this season will be a big part of them getting the role and experience. Why? If you made me pick one, Jarace has a chance to have the ball more, which might have more consequence for future teams. But Furphy's defense has been so fascinating for this team recently.
Yeah, I know that one of the things about Furphy, as I was told, Tony, I'm sure you've been told the same. Tony East, my guest, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. When he first came out of Kansas, they loved Furphy's defensive ability. And then in addition to that, quick hands. I know that sounds weird, but and quick release and ability to shoot the ball in rotation. But more so, I think it was his defense, and that kind of surprised you, right? Because fans fell in love with his tomahawk dunks in the summer league and an occasional three-point shot here and there, but defensively they liked. Now, Jarace Walker, Tony, I'm beginning to think that Walker, I don't know if maybe like an alarm clock went off, I'd used the term the fog was starting to lift, but it almost feels like Walker decided, you know what? If my name is going to be mentioned in these trade deadline rumors, I'm going to go ahead and really make a case that you've got to take a long, hard look at moving on from me, because he looks now like a player that could be a really nice 6th, 7th guy for them for a long time. Agreed?
Yes, 100%. If you can shoot threes and you're that size, even if your defense is just okay, great. Same thing with Furphy, but on the opposite end, you can play. And he certainly seems like, he defended well at Houston, but he has the capability to even grow more on that end of the floor. That's so significant for them, especially given where they drafted him. And, it's funny you mentioned the trade deadline, because I get the question all the time now with him playing better, wow, how great for the Pacers that Jarace Walker's up to trade value. What do you think of that? I'm like, he's on the Pacers. Shouldn't they be happy for them that he's more valuable to them and playing well? And, of course, it's always good when a young player plays well in general. But this has been, they can trust him now. And I think that's a big thing, because when the volume may be the wrong word, just how poorly his shot was at the start of the season. He couldn't make anything, especially inside the arc. That he can play on that stage, which is good, and means you're not a negative value player. And his contract is very, very cheap because he was picked late in the first round. So certainly not like a negative value. They don't need to get off of his money or anything, but there's not a lot of teams that are a Ben Shepherd away from being, much better, or he's the missing piece to what they're doing. So, a cozy second rounder might get it done. But if I'm the Pacers, I'm not looking to move him. I think if he is involved in a trade, it's what you just said. They need X amount of salary to make it work or to make it make sense for both teams with whatever financial restrictions are in place, and he is a casualty of that. And it wouldn't be great for the Pacers to do that. That would hurt. He has, again, been in their rotation for 2 straight playoffs. But Furphy's emergence, Walker's emergence, and upcoming fairly high draft pick certainly makes it easier to move off of some superfluous guys. If they consider him superfluous, they could do that.
Tony, I'm glad you mentioned the potential of a high draft pick because they're 6-5 in their last 11 games. They're playing a lot better. Are they going to play their way out of having the best chance at getting a top 3 pick to get, or even a top 4 pick to get one of the big 4 that would be in the upcoming draft? Because when you look at it, Pascal Siakam doesn't want to sit, and Obi Toppin's going to be coming back soon. And we all know Obi Toppin is kind of like Buddy Hield in the fact that if he's healthy, he wants to play and not be sidelined. So are they going to be in a position now where we were talking about for so long this season, hey, look, there's Darren Peterson, there's AJ Demansa, there's Cameron Boozer, to now it's just like kind of slipping away on the hopes and dreams of one of those guys being in consideration for the Pacers?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how their priorities shift and when, because, I mean, look, they'd have to win like 20 games in a row to be a play-in team. Or so, maybe it's not that high, but to get to the win percentage of what the Hawks, who are 10th, have now, I mean, they'd have to win a number that they might not even win the rest of the season total, right? They're not making the playoffs. So they know that. They're not dumb, right? So they have to figure out when the right time to pull the plug, evaluate the team differently, think about the draft really is. You know, right this second, it's like the Siakam All-Star push is happening. They'll name the All-Star reserves on Sunday, right? And then if he makes it, he's going to play through All-Star, obviously. I don't think they're going to shut him down soon or anything like that. But what's the right amount of minutes for him? He played 36 last night. I don't think anyone thinks that's the right number. I think that's too high, right? I said that in November when you guys asked me if he was playing too much. And I get why he's playing a lot. They were able to come back and win because he was on the floor. But is that the best thing for their team long term? Probably not, right? So when is the right time to shift away from that? Is it after All-Star? Is it after the trade deadline? Is it some amount? Let's pretend they acquire a player of significance at the deadline. Well, they want to see that player play with Siakam. Okay, how long? How much of a sample do they want to get to learn about that before they really focus on it? So they have, I mentioned this earlier, they have the best player of the bad teams, right? It's not even close. I think if you look at the inverse standings, the Hornets are 7th worst, and they've won over 40% of their games. I don't think the Pacers are getting to 40%. So I think the Pacers are locked into bottom 6. Of those 6 teams, though, they have the best player this year. So they'll have to be pretty intentional if they want to try to get even lower among that group. The Pelicans don't have their pick. They might be trying to win down the stretch, but it'll be hard to be as bad as the Nets, the Wizards, et cetera, down the stretch. So they'll have to be really cognizant of minutes and who's playing. And, you know, it's always hard to do. I think with tanking, you can just kind of feel when it happens and starts. We'll see when that happens for the Pacers. But, yeah, I mean, sacrificing a good pick for, 36 minutes of Siakam in late January, it maybe isn't the best one-night thing, even if the win felt good for the fans in attendance and the team can see some success of Furphy, things of that nature. It's a hard balance, right? It certainly is.
By the way, what do you think with the Giannis news, Tony East, our guest, with Giannis wanting out in Milwaukee apparently, or Milwaukee prepared to ship him out, what do you think, and I don't mean this rhetorically in a ha-ha kind of way, what does it mean, not that people here care, but I think they're curious, for Miles Turner? What is Miles Turner thinking? Do you think the Miles Turner move had anything to do with Giannis wanting out, just the way that it is meshed or not meshed, and et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, that team stinks. They're 12th in the East. They're 2 spots out of the play-in, right? I thought they'd be maybe not great, but certainly better than this. And they just keep having super disheartening losses. I think it's been a rough year for Doc Rivers in terms of his coaching resume. Do they regret the Miles Turner move as the Bucks? I mean, if they move Giannis, maybe. The thing is, they don't have their own draft picks for a long time.
Right, and they've got no money either, right?
Right. They have technically their pick this year and then not for a while, but they have the worst of their pick in the Pelicans pick. So they kind of could tank this year, but they don't have a lot of, they can't really just stink on purpose the next couple of years. They don't have their own picks to do it. So they kind of want they might want good players still in a Giannis trade on top of obviously every draft pick and young player they can get. So they might be fine still having Turner. He'll help them win some games and be good in the future seasons. But honestly, some thought Miles Turner might have is, thank God he got that trade bonus in his contract, because if the Bucks decide to move him as well as Giannis, he could stand to make $10 to $15 million more, depending on where he goes or how much of it he does or does not decide to waive in a move. So he could end up being kind of a big winner from this and his contract being even higher. But yeah, certainly shocking to see how bad that team has been. And I get Giannis has been hurt, but even when he plays, they lose a lot. So I do wonder how he feels about his decision now. But look, he got paid, and that contract's guaranteed for 4 years. So if money was his sole goal, I don't think he'll be too beat up about it. If winning the whole time was his goal, then I think he will be beat up about it because that team is very bad already with Giannis.
Last night was it IU night at the Pacer game? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
I saw the Bison running around, right, with Boomer.
Yeah.
And other than that, did I miss though? I didn't see, like, usually when it's IU night, they've got all kinds of dignitaries there and stuff like that. I don't know if I saw that. Did you see it?
No, I don't. Did they? I don't think they had any. Now that you mention it, I'm thinking about it. I don't think they had any.
Well, the hat, Eddie, they had a hat giveaway, but wasn't that supposedly you had to send something in, right?
I don't know. It's a certain ticket you had to buy to be eligible for it. I don't know.
Wasn't it the first? It was like the first certain number of tickets or something, wasn't it? Maybe?
I think so.
Yeah.
I just saw the Bison fellow running around. He's kind of jacked.
Yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton's put on weight supposedly. Now, somebody sent me that he had said he gained 30 pounds. That seems, I'm with Ralph, that seems a little heavy, Tony. Your thoughts? Does Halliburton look heavier to you?
Cookies and ice cream.
Yeah,
Jake.
yeah.
Cookies and ice cream. That's what he said.
Really?
100%. Yeah, he said on that Mind the Game podcast he did with LeBron, he said that in Game 7 he weighed 180 pounds and right now he's 210. So that would be 30 pounds. And like you can see it. Like if you, I posted videos of him shooting before games. Like you can see it. And I'll say this too. This guy tore his Achilles last year. You can see it with Isaiah Jackson too, right? For a while you can't exercise, right? Like you can't do cardio when you tear your Achilles. It's just going to happen. And I think Halliburton joked that he's like drowning his sorrows with the wrong foods and things like that too, which was funny. So yeah, he's bigger. And I do think there's like some merit to adding weight to his game. Like I think you mentioned watching the way Peyton Pritchard can kind of throw his body around to create space and see show short. But they're also like, if you gain too much muscle in your arms, like it affects your shot and like how fast are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I used to be able to I was like Jay Edwards. I mean, I was silky smooth. And then once I got ripped, it did change things. I was more Nemhard, more mid-range. I'm serious.
So, yeah, it's happened to players all the time. Yeah. And they have to figure out, how it feels, what parts of their body rub together, things like that. So I don't think it's going to affect him so much. I think he needs to be closer to like 190, though.
During that interview with Tyrese on Mind the Game with LeBron, Tony, he revealed that he felt like he could go out there and play, today, and then he was doing a 3-on-3, and Benedict Mathurin was somebody who was guarding, and he told Ben, he's like, "Hey, don't hold up." Last night after the game, I thought this is so peak Benedict Mathurin. For those that haven't heard it, I'm going to play it, Tony. I'm going to let you kind of explain what's going through your mind after you hear this response from Ben.
It's not easy. You just came back from injury, especially having to guard me. It's not the one you want to see right after injury. So I got plenty of buckets, man. Plenty of buckets on the way too.
If you told me like before I asked the question to write down or guess how I thought Ben Mathurin would describe that, I would have got pretty close. I think I would have been pretty close. That guy loves to score and loves to tell everybody that he can score and will score, and that's what he does, right? That first half against Atlanta, his first game back in 3 weeks, he was on fire and couldn't miss. He had a bunch of crucial threes in the third quarter.
Hey, you are correct. He won them a game in the finals.
Yep.
Ben Mathurin. He also cost them a game in the finals.
That's also true.
And that's the rum tastes good. There are several things that I like that have rum in it. It's a key ingredient to a lot of things I enjoy. But the Pacers, unfortunately, are a Manhattan. And Manhattan doesn't require rum. It's a totally different taste. It makes sense?
It does make sense. I like that. Yeah, I mean, look, there's been questions about his fit for forever, and I think it's kind of a bummer that this season has turned out the way it has, and that he was balling for those 2 games, but that has just been too hurt to like get a lot of time on the floor to establish anything new, right? And so there's kind of no new information about what he is. The only new thing is it's even closer to free agency in his next contract. So he'll be certainly somebody to watch in the next week with the deadline coming up.
Is your confidence level in conclusion here 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 being the least, that the Pacers will make a notable move at the trade deadline?
Oh, define notable.
a player that we'd regularly discuss or one that has been a consistent contributor?
6 or 7.
Okay. I do believe if there is an offer out there where they can get like Paul Schaefer must have been doing Gangnam Style like in 1995. You know what I mean? It's ahead of the trends. All right, Tony, we appreciate the time as always.
Yep, thanks for having me, guys.
Tony East joining us, Java House, Peel and Port Gas Line. Again, Locked On Pacers, Forbes, WTHR, a number of places that you can see Tony's coverage of the Indiana Pacers. Did you, Eddie, you're in on the 6-7 craze? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not in on the 6-7 craze, but I just like to bring some youth to the program.
But it's over with, right? The 6-7 thing? That was
I feel like it's dying.
Yeah, it lasted like 6-7 weeks, right? And then it's done now, right?
Okay.
No, I'm being serious.
Sure.
Can we start a new trend?
What's that?
How about this? So I'm saying something to my friend, and you walk up, and you're like, what are you guys talking about? And I say, it's just QR.
Just QR.
QR. You know what that means?
What?
Speaking, I'm just like, you walk into the workplace, and I'm standing there with J&V. You walk up and you go, hey, guys, what's going on? I go, we're just discussing and talking some things in QR. QR.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Mm-hmm. See? It's a new trend. I just thought of it. This noggin right there just created it.
Okay.
Couple of kids in the back seat of the car, and the mom's driving, and it's like, kids, what are you guys talking about back there? And they say, we're just speaking QR. QR.
That sounds like a made-up language.
You ever go to, like, Pig Latin? Do you speak the Pig Latin?
No, I don't. Do you?
Umfre, imte, ute, imte.
That doesn't sound like a pig.
That's Pig Latin.
That
You don't
doesn't
know
sound
Pig
like a
Latin?
pig. That doesn't sound like a pig.
I'm not saying it does, but it's Pig Latin. But what I just said to you, QR. QR. Now, see, I'm developing right now a new trend for the kids.
No, you're not.
I am.
No.
Couple of kids talking to each other. Teacher walks in. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt? I thought you guys were supposed to be doing your math homework. And one of them says, Mrs. Smith, it's cool. We're just talking QR. QR. Now, you'd like to
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, it started during COVID primarily, but a lot of places still use it. When you go to a restaurant and you sit down and they come around and they say, oh, you can use your phone for our menu. You pick up your phone and then there's like a little thing on the table. You use the camera. What is it that you have to scan, Eddie?
QR code.
QR. A couple of kids sitting in the back seat of the car. Mom's like, what are you kids talking about back there? Mom, don't worry about it. Just QR. Speaking in code. Telling you, this will be the next 6-7.
That is like the biggest dad joke you've told.
No,
me
it's not
forever.
at all.
Yes.
No, this is a new thing, a new trend I started.
No.
I don't even have kids, so you can't. It can't be a dad joke.
Steve F. from Avon chimes in on the text line. High school student section still goes crazy if a team gets right to 67 on the scoreboard.
It used to be one more bucket after that, and then all hell would break loose.
I think all hell still breaks loose, as long as they hit a 2.
So they get to go. They get to go for back-to-back buckets.
I guess so.
Okay, fair enough. You know what's going to happen now. Kids are going to go crazy if they're somewhere and for some reason they're reciting alphabetical stuff and they get to QR. QR. Listen.
No.
Eddie.
No.
Let me just remind you, okay?
Okay.
Shall I remind you that it was on this radio station where I just right here, you can see it. I mean, I've got pretty good hair. Underneath this hair, okay? Underneath this hair sits
Just don't turn your head around.
A wrinkled that's right. A wrinkled sponge-like material. Now it's under protection. Don't get me wrong, right?
Not much.
And inside of that is the creation of all of this. It's literally like a creative factory. Okay. You see the way the sausage is made. Now the links are just churning out. That's what this matter that's underneath this dome here is, just a creative factory.
Do I need to blame Mrs. Query
No,
for this?
I'm just telling you.
And I'm not talking about your wife.
And so on this radio station is where I just, in a moment of spontaneity, came up with Why Not Indiana?
Right.
Which, by the way, if I may.
Okay.
The other day I got really bored, obviously.
Oh, shocker.
And so I asked the AI, right?
Oh boy.
I asked them because I'm basically what I'm doing here is I'm doing background checks on my trademark, because that's not an easy thing to do. And so I asked it about what is Why Not Indiana? Okay. This is what the AI says. Why Not Indiana is a popular catchphrase and slogan popularized by Indianapolis sports radio host Jake Query, serving as an enthusiastic, optimistic rallying cry expressing belief in Indiana teams, athletes, or the state itself achieving success, often in the face of skepticism or long odds. After major wins or milestones, Indiana football notably, fans will echo, "Why not Indiana?" to celebrate underdog triumphs or question of why greatness can't happen here.
Now, what did you search to get that?
I had the Grok AI. I just said, what is Why Not Indiana?
Oh, okay.
Now, so what I'm saying is, you laugh, but the next craze is going to be the QR.
No.
Kids are going to say it. No. Now, the one challenge here is this, and this is admittedly a hurdle we're going to have to overcome.
We helped get Nim Hell onto the scene. I'm going to echo what Caitlin Cooper is now trying to coin. Furf around and find out. I'm with her on that. We need to get that going.
Okay. And again, when you say that, and people are like, so if you said furf around and find out, right? Someone's then going to say to you, what does that mean? And you know what you say back?
I am not.
It's part of the Pacers QR.
No.
QR.
So your question earlier, Jake, was which college football
Here's my
program?
question from earlier. You have the opportunity now. What we saw from Indiana in the college football season was an athletic program and a university taking advantage of kind of the new era of college football. They put in the potpourri with the ingredient of brilliant coach, players that buy in, and I think there's also a very underrated aspect of the JMU players coming over I don't know that Curt Cignetti does what he does without having Elijah Surratt and D'Angelo Pons and Aiden Fisher and the guys from JMU, not saying because, and those guys are great players, that goes without saying, but also for those players to be able to go into that locker room and kind of have their coaches back for guys to buy in. Cignetti's not going to need now players to have his back on that because the proof's in the pudding. They Googled him, right? They know he wins. But that was very important in the beginning. But all of the ingredients that went into it, those aspects, the monetary aspects, the NIL, the transfer portal, it all came together to create this once-in-a-lifetime dessert out of the oven. And we'll see whether or not they're able to continue that and replicate it. What school, based on that, so what I'm saying is Indiana proved this can be done. And Indiana kind of put the blueprint out on how it can be done. Knowing the blueprint and executing it are two different things. But when you factor all things in, campus, money, backing, Forbes companies nearby that might be invested, all avenues of it.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the schools in the Big Ten, if you got to pick one of them, starting today, and every year that they do not make the Big Ten championship game, you win $1 million. You get to pick one school. And every year that they don't make the Big Ten title game, the next day, direct deposit into your account, $1 million. What school of the 18 in the Big Ten Conference would you pick because you are most confident it would net you long-term the most money because they have the least chance to get themselves to the position that Indiana did in terms of turnaround?
Obviously, there's no one correct answer. I think
Correct.
there's a handful of teams that could be in this discussion. Like, so immediately the teams that came to mind were like Northwestern, Maryland, Rutgers, because when you just look at the history of college football, Indiana going into this year was the all-time losingest program in college football history.
Right.
That title is now with the Wildcats of Northwestern, and then number 3 is Rutgers. Now, I wanted to initially say Rutgers, but the thought here that I had was this. It's coming out within the last week or so, actually days, that Rutgers, since joining the Big Ten in 2014, has lost nearly $517 million.
How?
I had no idea. Since joining the Big Ten, their athletic deficit is $517 million. And so if I'm thinking out loud here, would there be a chance, because they are losing so much money, that they would have to shut down the football program? And so Rutgers would not stay in the Big Ten long enough for me to net enough money here.
Yeah, okay. They have to be in the exactly, because you're out. Once they're out of the conference, you're out. Right?
Exactly. That's where I was going there. So I will stick with my second, and that would be the Maryland Terrapins.
Interesting. Okay.
I thought about Purdue as well, but I thought there could be motivation from the Boilermakers athletic department with the success of Indiana to try to get things right with the Boilermakers, to get them on the right track. And I feel like they could eventually get it right and have a year or two. I mean, they were just in the Big Ten championship not too long ago anyway. So they've had the success already.
The Big Ten, it is estimated that each Big Ten school for their membership gets $75 million annually. And that number, I believe, was before the $7 billion, that's with a B, $7 billion television contract was factored in completely. So for Rutgers to not make money would seemingly put them in like a gross negligence financial area, right? Rutgers is a really good call. The school that I would go with, Northwestern, is an easy go-to because they've been so bad in so many sports for so long. But Northwestern's got wealthy alumni, and they have backers in the Chicago area. They just built a new stadium. They're redoing their facilities. You know, I was in college during the out of nowhere, I think it was Gary Barnett was the coach, turnaround when Northwestern went to the Rose Bowl and played against Keyshawn Johnson's team. And that team, Lee Gissendaner was their star player, but they turned it around like that Pat Fitzgerald was on that team. They were really good. And so Northwestern's one that I think is actually kind of a sneaky dark horse to put themselves back into position because they have, I would assume, the backing to immediately go into NIL and get players. And I do think that players, especially with new facilities and being on the shore in Chicago and everything else, I think that Northwestern could turn it around if they wanted to. Every school, as we saw with Indiana, has that potential to turn it around. Every school has the ability to do so. But the one that I keep going back to is Minnesota. I don't know why I say that, but it doesn't feel like Minnesota has ever had, most schools at some point you become aware of a big backer or a big alum or something that you just know is a pillar or a behind the scenes, Oklahoma State with T. Boone Pickens, I think was his name. Everybody knew that guy was giving a bunch of money to Oklahoma State athletics. And all of a sudden overnight, they were always a decent football program, but they became really good, right?
Yeah.
And, we've talked about it before. Texas Tech with the oil money right now, you see it. It's the kid from Landman. I think he's the one. They've got the new wells going, and he's you haven't watched the Landman, right?
I have not.
Okay. Well, the kid wears a Texas Tech hat every day.
Yeah, you'll have to stick with Jeff George.
What's that?
You'll have to stick with talking to Jeff George at 2 a.m. about
That's
Landman.
right. Jeff George likes Landman. I forgot about that. But Minnesota, to me, is just the one that I guess if they made the concerted effort, like anybody, we have seen it can be done, but it just never has really felt like, other than the one time that Clem Haskins put it together for him, and then you found out that, speaking of NIL, and Clem's never been heard from since.
I know they have had some football history, but Michigan State is another one that could be in this category.
Think so?
They're good enough to be in the middle every year.
I think Michigan State's solid, right? Hey, Jake, Darnell Autry was an awesome back for Northwestern. Forgot about him, yes. I mean, Michigan State, I disagree. I think Michigan State's right on the cusp. Now, Michigan State did the anti-Indiana. Michigan State went from being really good to irrelevant overnight. And it's what in the world just happened? Remember they had that one coach, they gave him a bunch of money, and then he started hitting up secretaries on Tinder or something, and he got fired? Is that what it was? I think that's what it was.
Matt chimes in on the text line. Good call, Jake. Minnesota is the technical definition of a 500 team. Never good, never bad. College purgatory.
That is exactly correct. That is exactly correct. Minnesota is I've always felt this way as well. If you were to survey every school in the Big Ten and survey their fan base and say to them, okay, if your school cannot win the conference this year, give me the Big Ten school that if they win it, you would say, that's fine. They're the most harmless. I got no problem with them. You kind of take Northwestern off the board there because they have won so few things, to your point, other than that weird football season I talked about. They have won so few things that Northwestern is kind of the easy answer there. But if you were to take Northwestern out of the equation, I think the school that would get the vote from the highest number of other fan bases within the Big Ten of the innocuous opponent would be Minnesota. There's nobody that hates Minnesota, right? They're just kind of there. That gopher's kind of cute. I don't like the colors, right?
You don't like I don't even know what color that is.
They're maroon and gold. It just doesn't work. But the gopher fella's kind of a cute guy, right? They tear up your yard, but other than that, what do you got against gophers? Right?
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What do these two things have in common? That and
those are both sounders. The first one that first sounder was created when we were dropping mayonnaise into coffee.
Yeah.
And that's the brain dropping, right?
Uh-huh.
The second is the query bat analogy.
Yes. You know what they have in common other than being sounders?
My brain droppings at 3:48 in the morning typically lead to a bad analogy.
That's very common, but that's not where I was going with this.
Okay.
They're both QR.
See, you don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit it. Eddie doesn't want to admit it, but he's on it. You're on the QR train.
No.
You know, they got to listen. They got the NQ train in New
Sega
York. Why
Baba
not
is
the
gonna
QR
take
train?
off before
Get on board,
QR.
buddy. Get on board.
Sega Baba will take off before the QR train.
No.
Yes.
Take off. You're a minute late, buddy. You're right. It already is taking off. The QR train left the station. QR. You don't want to admit it, but you know deep down you're like, that's pretty solid. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. You heard me talking about it earlier. Surfside, this is going to be a big year for Surfside because not only did they have a great year last year of you folks enjoying that iced tea with a splash of vodka or lemonade with a splash of vodka, but they got a ton of new flavors coming out this year and some new beverages and styles that they're coming out with. And Surfside is fabulous because just 100 calories, just 2 grams of sugar, and with no carbonation, it is so smooth. That's what you love about Surfside. It is so easy to drink. It is so refreshing, and it is great no matter what you're doing. Sitting by the fire this time of year, great. Camping out, great. Surfside, always a good companion. But always please be 21 and please drink responsibly. Wherever you find your favorite adult beverages, look for the can with the sunset stripes.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, the hippie trail head full of zombie, right? Right where he's talking about right now, Colin Hay, right? What he says is he's traveling in a fried out Combi, which is basically a smoked out Spicoli van, okay? Do you know that in this song, the fellows at Men at Work, if they wanted to, get more effectively to where they're going, they could have ridden the Queensland Rail travel line, the train, down under. More commonly known as the QR train, by the way. Just so you know. Huh?
You're ridiculous.
No, it's the QR train. And get on board.
No.
QR. Telling you. That's what all the kids are talking now. The 6-7 is that's so old, man. That's so played out. So played out. The QR train. You get on board.
If somebody pulls up and asks me, hey, what does QR mean? I'm going to say, well, that's just Jake being something that I'm not going to say on the radio.
Listen, you can say that, or you can say, oh, you don't know? And if they say, no, I don't, you say, QR just means you're speaking in code. And
Quite
they're going to say, and you know what they're going to say? I feel like I'm a member of the club.
Quite ridiculous. I would hope they would say they're a member of the company.
That too. But the company, you know, when you're a member of the club, there's an exclusivity to it, right? This company's for everybody, Querying Company. We know that. But the QR, that is, kids will love it. I mean, and if there's one thing I know on this program, it's what the kids love.
Really?
Get to know your listener. Kids love it.
They do love that.
Kids like concerts, which we have tickets to give away, right?
We do. We still have a pair of tickets to go see Mellencamp.
I did realize, because someone called in with this, and there may be more than one, because I would imagine over the years there have been several videos shot of John Mellencamp performing concerts in the state of Indiana or Indianapolis. But last night, couldn't sleep.
Really?
Yeah.
You?
Terrible night of sleep.
Oh.
So I went down a rabbit hole on the YouTube and was watching music videos, and one popped up, and I'm like, I have always liked that song. So I locked it in and watched, and it was the video it was a Mellencamp video, and I had forgotten. I had totally forgotten that there was a music video filmed at Market Square Arena for Mellencamp. And the music video that was filmed at Market Square Arena, I believe it said December 11th, 1987.
Was that Cindy Denise who called in, who revealed that she was...
She was at a Motley Crue concert.
Okay.
We were
music
talking
video,
about...
you mean?
What's that?
Music video?
I think Wild Side was filmed at Market Square Arena. But there was a Mellencamp video as well that was filmed at Market Square Arena. And if I recall correctly, people told me it was after the concert. So they had said, you know, hey, they knew going into the concert, or at some point they had announced that once the show was done, they were going to film a music video. And I think they did the song twice. And it was the second go-round of the song was the one that they kept for the video. My buddy Paul Hurley, Paul the Mailman, Paulie in Fletcher Place was there. He knows which song it was. Should we do that as a trivia question, or is that too easy for people to Google?
Too easy to Google, and now it's giving them time.
You think it is too easy to Google?
Well, too easy to Google, and we were giving them too much time now to...
But it doesn't. The time doesn't matter if it's not something that can be Googled. What I'm saying is, if you Google it, does it come up? Or it could be that we're just speaking QR to everybody here.
Check it out was filled at MSA from Steve from Avon.
Okay, thanks. Check it out is correct, yes.
See, look, see, that was what, a minute later?
But somebody chimed in. They didn't Google it. They just knew it off the top of their head. That's worthy of tickets. See, you just ruined the fun for them.
Now look at that. There's 3 more. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
I am checking it out. You know what you should check out? QR.
No.
Kids love that.
Nope.
What are you kids doing back there? What are you talking about anyway? Don't worry about it, Mom. Just QR. QR. That's the new 6-7.
No, it's not.
I'm telling you. We're doing a midday show, so people aren't necessarily driving around with the kids in the car right now. But if they were, that is something that would take Alf like a house of fire. And before you know it, you're going to be hearing it on the streets. It's catchy, is it not? The QR code?
No.
Okay. And if you'd like, I could get you a T-shirt that just has simply on it a QR code. What's your shirt there? QR. What does that mean? Part of the code.
Does that code take you to the Why Not Indiana?
There is
slogan?
a whynotindiana.com. Yes, that is correct.
Is that yours?
No, actually, a listener has it. Well, yes, because it goes to the show. If you want to listen to the show, you can go to whynotindiana.com, and it takes you to the YouTube link. merch coming, right? If none of that makes sense to you folks, it's because Eddie and I are speaking in QR. QR. The new 6-7.
No, it's not.
Recap last night, Fieldhouse next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Are you sending out smoke signals? Is that what we're doing here?
I could be. I'm glad you're picking up, Jake.
Oh, listen. You've been around me long enough now, see that with you, and this is again the way that this brain works. I'm picking up what you're dropping, as the kids say. But that again, that's like so 2018, right? Just
What?
like the 6-7 is so 3 months ago.
Picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, picking up what you're putting down. But what I'm saying is, okay, the new fresh hip is to speak in QR. QR. Okay. Listen, you're rolling your eyes.
Yes.
Somebody's gonna say it to you in the next week. You're gonna come up to me and you're gonna say, "I don't know what you started." But and again, I realize on this program, this is all I know. We have 39 female listeners. Okay,
38.
It might be 38. Yeah, but we're trying to. And they said this to me the other day. We had a meeting. We had a show meeting, and they told me the two
I wasn't
things.
there.
Huh?
I wasn't there.
No, I know. Most of the meeting was spoken in QR.
Okay.
And in the meeting, they said to me, "We need to get more hip. We need to do what we can to get more hip. Speak a little more vernacular for the younger
So
audience."
then why would they not want me in that meeting if they're wanting to get more hip and get closer to the younger demographic?
Well, they know. I mean, they looked at me and they said, "Now, Jake,
Okay.
you ooze." Because a lot of people tell me this.
Yeah.
They say two things you ooze: hip and sexiness.
Okay.
right? I mean, no, it's true. It really is. It's true.
I can't take you serious.
And do you remember? Have you seen Forrest Gump? You've seen Forrest Gump, right?
Yes.
Okay, when Forrest when he's dancing in the room, and the guy from Mississippi that was passing by and
Help me, please.
Help
me, please.
Just for example, I'm looking out in our parking lot right now. Todd Myers, our executive producer.
Dan from Ohio, please stop the QR talk. Drop it. It's not good.
No, it is. Dan, Ohio. Are we listening to Ohio now? I mean, come on, really?
You're gonna
Really?
Okay.
I mean, listen. I like Ohio just fine, but are we really pretending that that's the beacon of hip? I mean, Ohio's still trying to pick up the pieces of what happened from the Big Ten title.
He's pretty hip.
Huh?
Have you seen Caleb Zuber? He's pretty hip.
He is. He and I just had a conversation the other day completely in QR. I'm looking out right now, and I'm watching our executive producer, Todd Meyer, just got in his car in the parking lot driving off, and he is saying to himself, I didn't know today was the day I was going to be more hip, but listening to this, I'm dialed in. It's exactly what's happening. Pacers last night at the Fieldhouse looked like the Pacers of a year ago, to an extent. I mentioned earlier today an odd thing happened when I left the house. Number one, that I left the house. And number two, it is odd that when you look at your phone right now and it says I don't even know. I'm going to say that it says it's 9 degrees outside. I'm going to look at my phone right now and we're going to see. I'm going to say 9 degrees, okay?
You're not even close.
19, okay.
Heat wave.
And again, 19, but feels like -5. That means it's -5. But either way, when you go out right now, 19 is really cold, right? You're really cold. But when you walk out right now, you think to yourself, it ain't bad. Because you have conditioned yourself to be aware of the shock of the cold because we've had it for a few days now, and you just know it's how it's going to be. And your brain has now conditioned you for it. And if I had told you a week before the finals began last year that I'm looking into a crystal ball and I'm looking at January of 2026, and I know two things of certainty. Number one, Jake Query is going to help Eddie Garrison become more young and hip. And number two, the Pacers are going to be sitting on 11 wins heading into the last week of January. You would have said to me, only one of those two sounds plausible. Because you would know that I speak in the QR. And so that part, you'd be like, yeah, I get it. But the second part of...
Do it again. You're producing the rest of your show.
There's no way that they're going to be sitting on that number. It has been a shock to the system, but of course the injury has a lot to do with it. And then the injuries beyond Halliburton, Toppin, Neesmith, Nembhard, etc. However, just like when you get past the initial shock of the cold, and eventually, without even realizing it, you realize that you subtly have, without realizing when it was happening, you have the epiphany that you've become accustomed to or used to it, where you're like, yeah, I didn't even think about how cold it was when I stepped outside. The same is kind of true of how bad the Pacers have been, but not personally per se. And I do want to let people know, and I'm being serious here, all of the kidding and the infantile behavior aside, I'm being serious when I say the one thing that I hope more than anything else that people understand when they listen to this radio show and this radio station is that when you hear us talking about a company that we're advertising for or partnered with or whatever it may be, that we believe in that product. Because if you are kind enough to give us your time to listen to the radio, we want you to know that we reciprocate that trust in us by giving you the names of companies that we want to make sure that you're getting a good product, a good, somebody you can believe in. And with Surfside, I looked into it when we began the partnership, read about it, loved their story. They started in Philadelphia. It was just a group of guys that got together and thought that there was an opening in the market, and they came up with an idea kind of like QR. And they saw an opportunity. And so they, Eddie has left the building. At any rate, Ryan and I have worked professionally, but never gotten together personally, and so I invited him to the game last night, and we had a great time. He's a guy who grew up in Central Indiana. His dad's an educator. He's got, kids in college here locally, and just a sports fan and a fan of all the teams locally, and we had a fun at the game last night. But it was such a good feeling to know that I love Surfside as a product, but also to know that that's a company that just has good people, and that when we're talking about products, we're talking about good people, and I enjoyed that. And so we're watching the game together. Ryan and I are sitting there, and we're watching the game, and it's late in the game, and the Pacers are down, and then all of a sudden they find themselves back in the mix late in the game, and the Bulls allow Indiana to make a couple of shots down the stretch, and it was vintage form. And Nembhard hits, and Nembhard has become exceptional, the best in the league perhaps at that mid-range step-back pull-up jumper, and Siakam hits a big shot down the stretch on the low block, and all of those things. And it was vintage form, except for that Halliburton obviously was not the guy that you're going too late. But the crowd's getting up, and they're chanting defense, and everything's going like, and you're thinking to yourself, this is last year all over again. And you're now accustomed to the frigid temperature of the way this season is going, because we've had a couple of weeks to get used to it. And so now you expect it, and you're accustomed to it, and you're used to it, and the shock to the system is gone. And those moments happen also that, just like when the sun pops out on a 5-degree day, that make you realize that there is still a semblance of what it is that you enjoy. And as I was thinking about it and watching it and soaking all of that in last night, and yes, I'm not trying to over-romanticize or speak hyperbole about a win in January over a Bulls team that puts you into position of, being tied with 4 others for the fewest number of wins on the season. Great, congrats. But if you look at what happened in Oklahoma City, and you see the emergence of Nembhard, who already had a very good mid-range game, but his involvement of others with that, and Siakam's professionalism of playing night in and night out after coming here and having been on championship teams and being really close to being on one here, and Furphy's development late in the game, making defensive plays that allowed Nesmith to help him out in that side of things, and all of the things that come with that. And then you think about Oklahoma City. And I thought to myself, that game in Oklahoma City was the Pacers sending the message. And I realized that Oklahoma City was not at full throttle as well. But the Pacers were sending notice to the rest of the league. Yes, our year sucks. And yes, our star is not here. And yes, we have won at that point 10 games or whatever it was. But don't write us off, because we are still here. Unlike Eddie, who's left, and James is now sitting in the producer chair. James, are you aware of why Eddie has decided to boycott the program?
I am not, no.
Some sort of a labor strike.
Oh, really?
Now, you're a hip guy, right?
I'd like to think so.
You are. You got a ponytail, more like the man bun, right, as the kids call it. You got the beard. You kind of look like one of the villains from the Superman movies. You've probably been told that before, right?
I've been told I look like Silent Bob from Jay and Silent Bob sometimes.
And I've parked near you before in this parking lot. We all park near each other. I've parked near you before. You got hip stickers on the car, that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Eddie, and I understand Eddie's positioning here. I do. I empathize with Eddie, and I feel for him. But Eddie is somebody, like the two of us, not very hip, right?
I'd agree.
And so I was just talking about, you've heard, James, the craze that the kids are using of the 6'7", right?
I have.
Played out, right? It's hit its expiration date.
I can't say I ever understood it to begin with.
Yeah, well, the expiration date on 6'7" was 6'6", right? We're past that, okay? Mm-hmm. So I said, I've decided that I'm going to come up with, we had a meeting the other day that we need to make the show more hip. And so I decided that the new hip thing for the kids is, if you are talking to one of your buddies, you're talking to a coworker, you're having a conversation that's private, like the one that you and I are having right now, and we're pretending Eddie can't hear, even though we know he's probably still listening to the show. What we're doing, we're talking in QR.
QR.
Yes. Now, QR, now you ask yourself, James, and you're saying to yourself, and I can appreciate this about you. You're saying to yourself, I work with J&V, who's a radio giant, but it's nice to be with Jake for this little interim fill-in basis because I have access to this sort of creativity. Not that John doesn't have that. But QR, I could tell you were intrigued right away. I can see it on the look in your face. QR.
What does it mean?
Thank
QR?
you for asking. When you go to a restaurant and they don't have an actual printout menu, they have a thing there and you use your phone and they say, our menu is available via your phone. Now, that is called what?
A QR code.
Correct. So when we're speaking in a vernacular that we'd rather other people not know what it is of which we're talking, and they come up and they say, hey, what are you guys talking about? You say, don't worry about it. Step off. QR. QR.
I got you. So is this why Eddie decided to boycott this? He did not like this analogy?
He wasn't on board with it. I think, truthfully, if you want to know the truth, I think a little slow to process the meaning and felt a little left out, which is kind of the point of the QR. QR. So because I have developed and created a new hip phrase that's going to be over, and you're going to hear people saying it. I mean, just brace yourself. You're going to hear people saying it. And Eddie didn't like it, and so he got up and boycotted. And that leads you here. Now, that said, aren't you impressed with my lingo?
I like it.
So yes.
I can hear Eddie protesting, but I do like it.
James just said, welcome to the company. We're happy to have you.
Well, thank you.
You're going to have to set the alarm a little earlier now to start getting in here at noon. But yes, we're happy to have you. Anyway, so last night with the Pacer game, what I'm getting at, I began to wonder. I'm not saying the Pacers are tanking. It would be irresponsible of me to say that. But when the Pacers first made their change, made their move, traded Sabonis, got Halliburton here, they saw something in Nembhard as well. And I always go back to when the Pacers basically said to the general public, listen, we're not going to be very good, and this is going to be a restoration process, and we need you to be patient. And they said to those of us in the media, we ask that you let our fans know that we're going to need some time and some patience. And it paid off. They got 2 quarters away from an NBA title. It paid off. They made the right moves. And so I don't think they're tanking. I don't think they're going into games. Matter of fact, it would be irresponsible to even assume that they would go into a game and say, what do we need to do today to lose this game? No, I don't think that's happening. Do I think that's happened with teams in the past? Yes. But I don't think that's happening. But are there times where the Pacers have said to themselves this year, hey, this is our gap year. This is the year where we are just figuring things out and we're going to try some different things. So are there games or moments in this season where the Pacers look at a particular situation and prioritize learning process over definitively winning a game? I think that's possible. They look at a game where they have a 16-point lead or whatever it may be, and they say, okay, we've always been curious, how well can Johnny Furphy play on the floor with Jarris Walker as opposed to replacing Jarris Walker or vice versa? How well can Ben Shepherd play on the floor running a little bit of point if Aaron Nesmith is the off-ball guard, whatever it may be, different things. Now's the time to figure those things out. Now's the time to learn those things. And so that is not always, that learning process, that inventory, that has not always manifested itself into wins for the Pacers. But when they went into Oklahoma City, was there a symbolism there? Was there we need to let the rest of the league know we haven't totally gone away and be on watch? Because, yes, we lost Miles Turner, and that is a significant loss to the way and the style that we play. And, yes, we did not have Obi Toppin so far this year, and that's a significant loss to the depth of the way we play in our rotation. And yes, Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard have missed significant time this year. So too T.J. McConnell, that we've got to start kind of putting, T.J. McConnell now is kind of like a lease car. You got to be careful of how many miles you're putting on it per year because you don't want later penalty. And so they know that. But I think it's really hard to not get caught up in and intrigued by and excited for the possibility of getting an athletic big that can facilitate transition and then also trail and hit threes, and putting him back into a roster that includes Andrew Nembhard, who is improved and more rounded, Tyrese Halliburton, Aaron Nesmith, that continues to make plays like he did last night, of plays that win you games in the end. Jarris Walker, that's become consistent in his scoring off the bench. Last night, unique stat line, 16 points and then donuts across the board. But still, with his body type and his ability, intriguing. And then you factor in the possibility of a wing off the bench that is a young player on a friendly contract that you acquire via the draft that replaces Ben Mathurin, who you used to get yourself the center. Nothing against Ben Mathurin at all. Wonderful guy, wonderful player, wonderful scorer, and has done good things for the franchise here. But it might be that his biggest contribution is he can be flipped into a piece that is of more importance, unfortunately, for him. And I think everybody last night, in the back of their minds, in the last 5 minutes of that game, as everybody's standing up and they're chanting defense, and it felt like May and June all over again. And it was cool, and it was fun. And the rest of the league, Eddie Garrison has brought his way back into the booth. Thank you, Eddie. We appreciate your return. The rest of the league last night probably was wondering why it was that this fan base that all showed up. It felt like last night. It felt like last year, I mean. The fans all showed up. And maybe the rest of the league is wondering why everybody was standing up and applauding and trying to carry and lift the team to a 12th win in 40-plus some outings. And that cheering that we were doing, the high fives that people were doing, the chanting we were doing, you know what all of that was, Eddie, last night at the Fieldhouse?
What was that?
A fan base in QR.
Okay.
QR. No one else might understand it, but we did.
If I don't show up tomorrow, you know why.
Well, if you're going to send some sort of a note about that, you can either say it directly or you can speak it in code. Kids love it. Hey, Jake, does QR stand for questionable radio? You know? I don't know. I don't think it's questionable. I think it's solid. Quality radio is what that is. Quality radio. Where'd you go on your little smoke break, Eddie?
Let's go find the chipmunk.
You know, that was, I got to be honest with you, that was perhaps the best 5 minutes we've had of radio.
Who's
James?
we?
Huh?
Who's we?
The cohesiveness. James and I.
Oh, you want me to?
There was a coagulation there.
You want me to go bring him back and you can just.
Sure. That guy's hip is what he is.
Okay. Just because he has a little man bun makes him hip.
What did you think of Johnny Furphy last night?
I think Johnny Furphy has really solidified himself.
Speaking of weird hair.
The last 2 weeks, month, as either the best or second best defender on the Pacers team. The way that he has mastered lately the ability as a if he's on a guard to let the guard get into his chest, and he has the length to kind of reach around the backside and poke the ball free and generate a fast break, has been really, really impressive to me. And I'm interested to see how the shot continues to develop, because he hasn't shot the ball well, but
correct,
he stays on the floor because of his defense. And it's something that I wish that Benedict Mathurin could take a little bit from. If you watch Furphy after misses, 9 times out of 10, he is going to be the first player on the other side of the floor. He is sprinting all the time. He's never jogging. He's never moping, walking up and down the floor. He is always sprinting. And he is always crashing the glass hard for a team that has had struggles rebounding since the acquisition of Tyrese Halliburton when they shipped off Domantas Sabonis. And I think that he's starting to become one of those guys that you can rely on a nightly basis for 20 to 25 minutes, maybe even 30, depending on if he's got a shot going that night.
Furphy is a deceptive rebounder. And by that, I mean, you don't kind of realize, like I looked up last night, how many rebounds did he have? I'm going to say he had 6 to 8, right? Somewhere in there.
Uh-huh.
And you don't really realize he has any of them. And then you look up and you're like, oh, wow. And I do think that his defensive ability does create a little something for him, opportunity. And maybe it's unfair to say he was drafted as a flyer but he was a second-round pick. He played 1 year at Kansas. I don't think that he was like overly hyped when he got to Kansas coming out of Australia.
Well, if I remember correctly, he was one of those guys that was a fringe first-rounder toward the end. Like, there was a lot of talk about him going as, like, in that Isaiah Jackson, that 20 to 30 range, and he just kept falling, and people on the draft coverage were like, what's going on here with Johnny Furphy? Like, why hasn't he come off the board? And the Pacers said when they drafted him, yeah, we didn't work him out because he didn't think he'd be here.
Right. So, it was one of those, hey, let's go ahead and take it and see what happens. And I think that there are, and you get this with, Austin Crosher is a good example of this. Jeff Foster. Those are two good examples of guys. And those guys were drafted with, more in better spots. But those are guys that were drafted in early in their career, didn't get a lot of playing time. And so you kind of forgot about them. And then once they finally went to it, they started playing and like, you know what, this guy can play a little bit. And before you know it, they are long-standing parts of the franchise. And maybe the Pacers have found that with Johnny Furphy. I mean, listen, a couple of good games does not a season nor any sort of solid career make, but it beats the alternative, right? I just think that this year, and maybe I'm being optimistic Ollie here, maybe. But as disappointing as it is to see a team lose a lot of games, especially coming off of where they were, it does feel like that we could look back on it and say, man, what in the end a huge year that turned out to be.
Right. Like you talk about the championship window and like how long it is. And if they go down this path of like, okay, we need to lose as many games the rest of the way to give us the best chance at maintaining one of the bottom 3 records in the NBA to give us the best chance at the number 1 overall pick, I feel like that would extend that window a little bit because theoretically you're going to get one of those big 3 if you can secure a top 3 pick, Cameron Boozer, AJ Demansah, or Darren Peterson. And there have been a lot of high remarks about each one of those guys about being, if it was any other year, they would probably be the number 1 overall pick, each one of them.
Correct.
But like, since they're all in the same class, it's like, well, which one do you want? Like at the end of the day, it's going to come down to personal preference. But for a team like the Pacers, who hasn't had great success with Mathurin and Walker, but we're seeing a little bit of it now with Walker in these high lottery picks, and especially in the first round in general, you have to be able to capitalize on these situations, kind of like Oklahoma City when they stockpiled all those first-round picks, and now they've become this
paid off, right?
Team that nobody can stop.
Yeah,
And
you got to hit on them
coming.
for sure, right?
Yeah, right.
But it does feel like, one of the years, do you remember the year that Paolo Banchero went number 1 overall? And that was a shock, like at the last minute.
Yes.
Because Jabari Smith was the guy that was the presumptive number 1.
Yeah.
What has he done? And he's okay, right, in Houston?
I think he's a solid player. Like I think he's still trying to figure it out because, I think he dealt with injuries his rookie year, and then they get a new coach, and things start changing a little bit with the system and players around him.
But you got to give credit to Orlando there, though, because that was not, that was kind of not an out of left field, it's ridiculous, but that was a surprise when all of a sudden Banchero was the pick. And, I do think he is a franchise-level player. He's a solid pillar piece player. There was one other one. Who was the other one that was involved that year?
It's whoever went between Jabari and
So did Jabari go 3rd?
Yeah, he went 3rd.
What year? Look that up. That was at what?
2022.
22, yeah. So who was the second pick in 2022?
Oh, it was Chet Holmgren.
Okay. That's...
Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith.
You'd have been
Keegan
okay
Murray,
with taking Holmgren number 1 also, right? He's obviously a solid player.
Ivy, Mathurin, Sharp, Daniels.
Do you remember the year that Quentin Richardson was drafted?
Quentin Richardson?
Yeah, out of DePaul.
Jake, you're pushing it.
He went by his nickname. which were his
You are
initials.
Pushing it.
You don't remember him?
You're pushing it.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
2000.
Quentin Richardson. What? No, I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say Quentin Richardson was the 17th pick in the draft.
You're close.
16?
No.
What was he?
Peyton Manning.
18, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty close, right? I'm telling you,
what I
the
did there?
6'7" thing's old.
See what I did there?
That's outdated. What's that?
You see what I did there?
What's that?
I spoke in QR for you.
See? QR. You got to say it afterwards. Kids are going to be saying it all day long, Eddie. Just mark my words. Hey there, Jake Query for Game Day Men's Health with clinics now in the Indianapolis area, including Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood. I've been to the Carmel location. You just heard me talking about the fact that when you are talking about a company on this radio show, I'm always happy to be able to talk about different companies because I go in and I meet them and I see what they're about and I say, you know what? This is the kind of company that I want to spread what they're doing. And that is true for Game Day Men's Health because within their clinic, the very best in terms of efficient, making sure in and out within an hour, but coming up with a game plan for you guys, whether or not you are just kind of feeling that midday drag all the time, your testosterone level is low, maybe peptide therapy to start getting you just with quicker recovery, getting a little more pep in your step. That's what Game Day Men's Health wants to do for you. And they come up with a game plan that is designed for you, not some one-size-fits-all job. And, of course, FDA-approved pharmacies all right there on site. I went through, I met with them, I talked to them. Fabulous people and a great clinic for Game Day Men's Health to get you back in the game. Get that pep in the Hey there, Jake Query for Chicago's Pizza. 18 Central Indiana locations, 21 of them across the state, including a new one down in Martinsville. Chicago's Pizza, lot to love. For example, the family-type atmosphere of it, when you consider the fact that a lot of the stores are owned, operated, or managed by people who started out working there and just have kind of worked their way up and have loved what the initiative of the company is. And that initiative is family-based, making sure that they're providing for you and your family a great place for whether it be the lunch buffet, which you get just $13 for a salad bar, multiple varieties of pizza, and fresh handmade breadsticks right there. Or, of course, the family meal deal each and every night available to you. 2 medium, 1-topping pizzas for just $25 with a fresh order of breadsticks. They care about the community. They care about family. Chicago's Pizza, the very best. 18 Central Indiana locations. Find one near you at chicagospizza.com.
listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Are you indicating that is in some way some sort of indictment on the trajectory of this program?
I just like Tom Petty, Jake. That's
okay.
all.
Fair enough. Hey, Jake. By the way, Brendan King. You like Brendan King, right?
Yeah, I do.
Colleague of ours?
Yep.
Well-respected broadcaster. Does
absolutely
within the Cubs system, right?
Yeah, does some stuff for the Sycamores, and he's got a game on the CW network in about 3.5 weeks.
Just sent me a thing.
Oh,
hey, Jake,
gosh.
love that you're speaking the code.
No, okay.
Jake,
There's no way he sent that.
Jake, I was flying home this morning, flying through Dallas-Fort Worth, and the whole back half of the plane was a junior high school cheerleading team. I've never heard more 6-7s in my life. It was painful. And again, I responded with, they're totally behind the times. They'll all be saying the QR coming up before you know it. QR. Just means speaking with your buddies in code. Eddie's a fan. Yesterday, I did not think a lot of this at the time. And it kind of, I mean, I did think a lot of it, but I didn't know that it would go beyond what we're about to replay. But Mike Chappell came on yesterday. I wanted to have Chapp on because for 3 reasons. Number one, because it involves Bill Belichick. And if you look over the course of his time that Belichick was coaching, probably the team that was the biggest rival of the Patriots was the Colts. And there are others. I mean, the Patriots and, for Belichick himself, it probably would be the Jets because he had coached there. But the Dolphins, there are a number of teams that are rivals to the Patriots. But the Colts right there in the thick of it. And in addition to that, the scandals in which he has a notation on his resume, so to speak, Deflategate is a huge one of those, and that was against the Colts. And then you have Spygate as well, where he was fined. So that was Polian's words, immediately thought of the famous Jay Moore phone call on Mark Patrick's program that J&V was producing of Bill Polian saying to Jay Moore about Edgerrin James and that whole controversy, 15. That is, you don't have a shred of evidence. That is categorically untrue. That was 20 plus years ago, actually. So I could hear Polian saying it, but now he is obviously a much less animated Bill Polian. And I believe that Bill Polian's telling the truth when he says, look, I voted for him. I'm stunned he didn't get in. Then later to ESPN, he said, well, I'm like 95% sure I voted for him. So when we had Chapp on, I wanted to have Chapp on for 2 reasons. Number one, to ask if there in fact was some sort of a campaign or if there was anybody who had said, guys, we're going to make sure we penalize Belichick and not get him in. So we need everybody. Can we get a show of hands of who's behind us here? I wanted to know if that took place. And then secondly, I wanted to know, oh gosh, Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri are both eligible this year. And if if Belichick is not getting in, does that mean that those 2 guys have a better chance? And the way that Chapp explained it, of course, is that there are 2 categories. The first has 15 finalists that are all former players, of which 5 will get in. The other category has 5 individuals that can either be senior players that have gone through the cycle in group number 1 that I just mentioned, or executives, coaches, contributors, etc. Of that 5, there are 3 that will get in. And those 5 are Roger Craig of the Niners, Kenny Anderson, the former Bengals quarterback, and L.C. Greenwood of the Steel Curtain. And then the other 2, Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick. Now, Robert Kraft, and I didn't realize this, at the time that Belichick left New England, that created an icy relationship between he and Robert Kraft that is apparently almost bitter to this day. So perhaps it is Kraft that is a part of this. We don't know. But
would be pretty crafty.
It would be crafty indeed, right? He's not telling anybody what to do. He's just giving them a slight tug in that direction, right? So Let me play for you first what Chap said yesterday on the program in regards to all of this, and then the reason why my eyebrow was raised even more last night. Here is Mike Chappell yesterday.
There were pluses, minuses, many more pluses than minuses, but no one ever said, "Hey, man, don't vote for this jack off." No, none of that. It was just you debate. There's good debate. There's bad debate. There's emotions, but there were never any instructions by anybody among the other selectors.
So, to your knowledge, there was never any sort of a campaign to keep him out, to penalize him.
No. And anyone that says that, I was in the room. Yes, Spygate came up because he cheated. I mean, we can candy coat all you want. He was disciplined by the league, $500,000, and they were docked a first-round draft pick. So that's on his bio. So certainly it was discussed. Now, it just depends on how much you want to weigh that into keeping him out or making him wait a year. It's no different than we've had players who have been suspended for games for steroids, PEDs, whatever. And that could impact their nomination, their candidacy, because it's part of. There's no morality clause. The Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame, it's all based on the field, and I would argue that Spygate impacts on the field. I would argue that a 4-game suspensions for PEDs or whatever, it's on field related. So, but if there's an off the field thing, whatever, that's not to be. Or one thing, and please, people who say that Bill Belichick was kept out because he was a bad guy to deal with in the media. That's so much BS. It really is. I voted for people that I didn't care for. I voted for people that blew me off on interviews. That's got nothing to do with it. And if it does, yes, you should no longer be a selector.
Did you vote for Belichick?
I can't. I'm not going to tell you. I know you got to ask. I'm not going to say. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to keep it quiet. I may come out and say later, but right now I'm not going to say.
Now, all of that to me, I thought, okay, that's cool. And then last night, Chap posted a statement in a news release that was sent out by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It says, statement on media reports related to Hall of Fame's class of 2026. I'm going to read it here. Quote, the Pro Football Hall of Fame understands and respects the passionate reaction of many fans, media members, and enshrinees of the Hall itself in the light of published reports regarding the voting results for the class of 2026. It's that very passion that propels the game. The Hall also respects the members of the selection committee when they follow the selection process bylaws. It is an honor to serve as a selector. I thought, okay, but I'm a little intrigued on where this is going. I continue. Quote, each year, the Hall reviews the selection process and the composition of the 50-person selection committee. It is determined that any member or members if it is determined that any member or members violated the selection process bylaws, they understand action will be taken. That could include the possibility that such selector or selectors would not remain a member of the committee moving forward. The selection of a new class is the most important duty the Hall of Fame oversees each year, and the integrity of that process cannot be in question. End quote. That statement to me is one that you only make if you are sending a preemptive note to the fans, to the media, to the inductees, to the candidates, to everyone, that there could be a change moving forward because someone violated the rules of Fight Club. The number one rule is you don't tell anybody you were here. You don't tell anybody what happened. You know, they can speak to each other in QR, QR. But it is not to go beyond that. And therefore, when I put together the comments from Matt Verderam, from Mike Chappell yesterday, I did believe, I don't think Bill Polian did anything nefarious. And it would be irresponsible of me to now conclude that that's what took place or to say so. I like Bill Polian. Bill Polian was very difficult to deal with at times when he was the president of the Colts. But I think I can now say that I have enough evidence and before me of personal meetings and interactions to say that that wasn't his true character. It's who he knew at times he needed to be to best execute his job as the president of the Colts. But his true character is that of a very decent man. And I still believe that to be true. So I'm not saying it's Bill Polian that they're talking about there, but that statement leads me to believe that they did, in fact, somewhere find some sort of a rat, and they're like, okay, we need to let everybody know here we know what you're up to. That wasn't even them speaking in QR. QR. That was them saying directly, be aware of what's happening here, which I found interesting. I've seen JMV's in the building. We'll do the crossover, find out what he's got cooking for his program today. Of course, crossover brought to you, as always, by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website, 317-353-2141. On-call maintenance 24 hours a day, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer for Love Heating and Air.
Hey, it's Paul. I'm the director of giddiness, and you're feeling giddy on Query and Company on the Fans.
I think we've had a giddy show today, Eddie. Wouldn't you agree?
Felt like it was apropos to play
like last
Paul
night
there.
when I was watching the Pacers Bulls.
Feel like it was pretty apropos to play Paul
I
there
was
with
watching
Don't Bring
Josh
Me Down.
Giddey. Sorry, my headphones dropped out, so I can't hear a thing you're saying, Eddie. My apologies. Hang on. Yeah, you never sounded better there. I was watching Josh Giddey last night, and I thought to myself, that's what tomorrow's show is going to be like, just a giddy show.
I said it was pretty appropriate to play Paul the Mailman, the director of giddiness, with Don't Bring Me Down.
That's right. Well, and I think you're worried that my QR is bringing the show down today, but I'm telling you, I think we probably never had. We're gonna see tomorrow a huge spike. That's what's going to happen. I would expect tomorrow. As a matter of fact, you think the parking lot's tough now? Wait till tomorrow with all the kids wanting to come and maybe get themselves a trademark on the QR. JMV has arrived. He's got to throw my coat aside. My apologies.
That's all good. Hold on.
Cheryl Ladd, buddy. Nice shirt.
Cheryl Ladd. Was Cheryl Ladd, was she even with or maybe even a little bit better than Farrah Fawcett in the day?
You know what? Bentley and Rolls Royce, right? Boardwalk and Park Place.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. Cheryl, I thought Cheryl Ladd was out. And, her daughter, Jordan Ladd, was a little smoked-ified herself.
I was a fan of Cheryl Teague as well.
Oh, I like Cheryl
Teague, when I did the morning show on IBC, came on with us once and said, she complimented my voice. She's like,
Did she really?
Yeah, she's like, you have an amazing voice.
Heather Thomas. Oh,
yeah, Heather Thomas is there, yeah.
I've never wanted to see a button-up sweater
Zapped.
pop open so damn bad.
Who was the guy that was in Zapped?
Well, Scott Baio and
That's
Willie
right, Scott
Ames.
Baio,
Willie
yeah.
Ames, your friend.
That's right,
But
Willie Ames.
I mean, that was like one thing. So think about this for a moment. Scott Baio is really bad, but he allowed us to sit through the bad, through some really great stuff. Zapped.
Oh,
Charles
for
in
sure.
Charge was okay.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it was. That's when Nicole Egbert or whatever looked good.
Willie Ames was also on Charles in Charge, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think they were kind of like
correct. They were kind of
Laurel
like
and Hardy.
Sandler and Rob Schneider type thing, right?
Laurel
and Hardy. Yeah, there you go. What's on the big show today, John?
Chris Kramer, we're going to figure out the Boilermaker situation. He suggests that it's something they can get through, and I don't doubt that whatsoever because it's something that he had gone through as a player before. But I would chime in with, it's never been at this magnitude of expectation right now. So I think their end result probably was around Sweet 16 with him. This is a completely different ball game than anything with expectations right now. So I think this is a little bit more serious than people would let on. What do you think?
So are you guys going to –
I think they look like they're tired of playing with one another.
That's what we talked about yesterday. And you wonder now – I mean, I hate to say this, John. So not saying this about Purdue, but just in general – when are we in college athletics going to start seeing teams that get disrupted by the uneven disbursement of money?
I'm sure. These guys just look like they're tired of one another at times. You could just kind of tell. And I had pointed out Trey Kaufman-Renn being incredibly disappointing to me, even with good numbers this season. But he looks either frustrated or checked out more often than not out there, and it can't be that way. And I think that was the flare that Matt Painter shot after that game the other night in Bloomington was, these guys got to get back on it. We got to find somebody that can get out here. And it's funny, right, Jake? We talked about just how deep that team was at the start of the year, and now you're kind of wondering,
right?
It is a struggle. We'll talk about that. Have you guys talked about the whole Belichick thing? Do I really care about that? Hey, we live in a world, right, where ultimately somebody's going to get you on something. Like everybody was bringing up Bill Polian. Did you bring up the fact that when Bill Polian had that down year and that down cycle with this team, with the Manning neck and everything, that people were chomping at the bit over on West 56 to bounce his ass?
Yep.
They were coming up with and they ultimately did bounce his ass over there. So this happens, especially at a high level when you win, but when you do some things that people don't like, when you rub people wrong, when you're at your most vulnerable, Jake, they're going to find a way to get your ass.
John, I said yesterday, the way you treat people comes back to help or haunt you.
It does.
One of those two things.
It does.
All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon.